Hello, you are watching the Capsule in Conversation podcast, dedicated to women and their well-being. I'm Natalie Anderson, and today I'm joined by one of the UK's most prolific radio DJs, Stephanie Hirst, to talk conquering the airwaves, the importance of authenticity, and the power of revival. So, make yourself comfortable and get ready to join us in our conversation. Hello all, thank you so much for joining us. It is lovely to have you with us. I am so excited to be welcoming my brilliant guest today, as we have so many things to talk about that I know will resonate with so many of you. She is one of the UK's most popular radio DJs, starting her career at just 12 years old in Leeds and going on to host the national chart show Hit 40 UK, whilst anchoring Galaxy's most popular breakfast show, Hirsty's Daily Dose, for over 11 years. She hosted her self-titled ARIA award-winning show, The Stephanie Hirst Show, for the BBC, before heading back to commercial radio with her brilliant Hits UK Belters show. She's presented on Jeremy Vine, Loose Women and Lorraine, and written for The Guardian and The Times, and in 2016 received an honorary doctorate from Leeds Beckett University for her commitment to LGBT activism. I'm so excited to have her with me today. It's the gorgeous Stephanie Hirst.
Do you know when you kind of read all that out, it's like, oh my word, I've done all that.
Yeah, you have done all that.
You forget. And you'll know when you look at your CV, which is incredible, you look at it and you go, I've done all that. I haven't managed to cram all that in my tiny little life that I've had so far.
Oh no, come on, it's a big life. It's a big life that you've had.
Actually, yeah.
But, you know, if we go right back to the beginning, 12 years old at Radio Air.
Yeah, I was the person that got banned or barred from ringing the radio station. Not by my parents, it was by the radio station. Can you stop ringing, please? Can you stop it? Because any competition or anything like that, I was just constantly ringing. Because I think that radio is one of your first freedoms in life. So you know when you get your first bike and you get a little bit brave and you go to the end of your street and then you go 2 streets ahead, you think you've gone on holiday.
Oh, yeah.
Well, radio's a little bit like that because you can go on holiday almost on the radio. So you can tune around the dial and hear all of these different radio stations. And if you went on like, well, it's all DAB and digital these days, but you had like FM and AM and long wave, and you could tune around. And I got fascinated by finding radio stations, like I heard the American Forces Network. If I pointed my aerial in a different way, there was all sorts of stuff. And I just found it just fascinating. And I think as well, it's one of the first freedoms in life because you start to make your own opinions on music that you like. It's not what your parents are playing you. So it's not Dire Straits and Queen back in the 80s or Bruce Springsteen, which I do like that kind of stuff now, but my dad at the time. But I wanted to hear different stuff. So I was tuning around the dial and I found this radio station in Leeds called Radio Air, which actually wasn't my local radio station. Mine was a station in Sheffield.
I was going to say you were in Barnsley.
Yeah. So my local radio station was Hallam. But I tried to ring them and I could never get through to the DJ because I think Hallam had a bit more cash than Radio Air did.
Right.
So they had phone operatives to answer the phones, whereas Radio Air didn't.
They were just picking it up.
Yeah, they're just like DJs, like, hello, Radio Air. Hi, is that Peter Tate? He was one of the incredible DJs that worked there, the late Peter Tate. And I used to ring up all the time. And then there was a guy called James Whale. Late at night, he used to do a phone-in show. And he used to do this thing called do-it-yourself dedications. So I used to ring up because you then could get on air and introduce your own song that you loved. So whether that was Kylie or Mel and Kim or something, late 80s, early 90s, that kind of stuff. And anyway, I rang up too much and got told, can you just leave off ringing for a little bit? Because I was constantly ringing. And it almost became an obsession because I just loved radio. There was something really magical about it. And still to this day, I don't know what it is. It's just something that's truly magical. It's a one-to-one medium.
I feel like with radio, it's like you make friends.
Yeah.
It's like, you connect with people on a really different level. It's very intimate. And I think with it being audio and you can't see anything really, but yet you are so tuned in to whether that's the humour, the emotion. There is something in it.
It's theatre of the mind, isn't it?
It is very much so, theatre of the mind. And I think, for radio when you're younger, like you say, having that kind of choice of being able to make your own choices about what you want to listen to. And just listening to you say that then about moving the dial, and obviously it's not like that anymore, but I remember doing that and finding like, was it, I can't remember which one it was, the Virgin one that was like miles away, but it was American and it was so like exotic. It's like, oh, we can listen to American people.
Exactly. You just tuned around the dial and it just... I just thought it was this huge melting pot of excitement. I called it the magic box because I loved it. And I still to this very day, in my office at home, on my windowsill, is my first radio. And I see it every day. I look at it there and it just reminds me. It's battered. It works a little bit. The aerial's broken, but it's there. And I found my first ever cassette player the other day when I was 5.
That you used to put the pen in and like,
the little cassettes. I found my first cassette player as well. So, because I'm a hoarder.
Are you?
I'm trying to declutter. My house is like, it's like this set. But so it's lovely.
Yeah.
So, but if you open a cupboard, everything will fall out.
Everybody's got those drawers.
Everyone's
got those cupboards. But from you ringing in at 12, you did actually secure a spot at 16 in the station.
Yeah, well, I got in. So I went in the station when I was 9 on an open day. So Radio Air had, I think it was something like 5th birthday or something like that. And they had this open day. You could go in and you could have a tour around the studios for like 25p. And I was stood queuing in the corridor to go into the studio and made a decision at 9 that I was going to work there at 9 years old.
That.
So by 12, I'm in.
Yeah.
Because I'd said to the DJ, a guy called Paul Stead, who created the Yorkshire Vet and On the Farm and all sorts of stuff like that. He answered the phone, he was on the air, and I said, could I come in and look round? And he let me come in. So then I became one of his helpers. So I used to make tea. So by the age of 12, 13, I was going in regularly. And then by 16, the DJ who was on the overnight show wasn't on. I got to sit in. I played my first song, which was, one of my first songs was Billy Ray Cypress, Miley Ray Cyrus's dad, but I called him Billy Ray Cypress.
Was it Achy Breaky Heart?
It was Achy Breaky Heart. It was Achy Breaky Heart. And yeah, I called him Billy Ray Cypress. And no one noticed.
Oh, bless you. But yeah, pushing that button for the first time.
Oh, God, yeah.
That must have been like such an incredible feeling.
Well, I knew how to work the equipment. Me and Chris Miles is one of my best friends, and we had a conversation because he started at Radio Air like I did. And we had this conversation one night about the equipment at Radio Air going, did anyone ever show you how to use it? I went, no. He said, me neither. We just knew. You just looked at it. You knew that the slidey things that go up and down are called faders. First 1 and 2 were for CDs 1 and 2 or turntables 1 and 2. The other 2, the blue ones, were for the cartridge machines that played the jingles and so on and so forth. You just saw the DJs use it and you knew by watching their hands. No one ever showed you how to use it. So by the time I'd got on the air, I'd been there from an early age. I knew that thing inside out and I could make that thing fly. And I loved it.
And yeah, I've been in those same studios. I've done that same bit. And to me, I'm like, if anybody put me in that position, I'd be like, I don't know what to do. Do you know
what I used to do sometimes? We'd have guests in and literally on the old show on Galaxy or Capitol, I'd literally sometimes leave the studio with a guest and just leave them sitting there. Go and do it.
Just sit.
And me, Danny, and Jojo would walk out and stand outside the glass and they're just sitting there live on air, terrified, not knowing what buttons to press.
Oh gosh, that fills me with dread. That fills me with complete and utter dread. But like you say, you got on that show, you did the overnight show, and I often think this with DJs because it's just you talking. Like if you don't have a co-host. How do you do that for so long?
I don't know, and I still, to this very day, I play chicken with myself on the air sometimes.
Really?
I'm really bad. Do you know, not that anyone should ever play chicken running across the road. Green cross code, all the time.
Be safe.
But sometimes I'll sit in the studio, and even now, I'll look at the song, because everything's digital, and you're watching the count down, and it's going 10, 9, 8, 7, nothing in my head. 0, microphone on, and you will probably do the best bit you've done all show because it's fight or flight, isn't it? I spoke to a neurologist a few years ago on my old BBC show, and I was interested to find out it's panic. Why we do this? Why all of a sudden, if you've never been on stage, all of a sudden you get thrown on stage, you perform.
Yeah, you do it.
You just do it. So it's a little bit like that. All of a sudden your subconscious kicks in and words appear. And I do it just to keep myself sharp.
But you said to me earlier, you don't really get nerves. And I'm like, oh my God, you're so lucky because I suffer terrible with nerves.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, just remember that nerves is just excitement in reverse. That's all it is.
Yeah, you say that.
It is. It's just excitement in reverse. Just imagine you're excited.
Well, I'll try that one. But for me at the minute, it doesn't quite work. I still have to be like, my breathing, count back from 10 and all of that. Yeah. But yeah, in a weird way, I'm the same as you. I throw myself into these situations, which are live situations where you have to you just have to get on with it. And I think it's when you feel probably most alive.
Yeah, it's a feeling I love. I love being on. I've been on stage since I was at least 3 or 4 because my dad was in bands. So occasionally, if it wasn't a working men's club, he was working at night. It'd be a Sunday matinee.
Yeah.
So me and my mum would go along and watch my dad in the band, and I'd get dragged up on stage, invariably. And so that view of being on stage and seeing an audience, whether it's the Palladium, which I've been fortunate to stand on that stage, or it's a working men's club in Bradford. It's that view. And you'll know, being an actress and being on stage, it's a drug. And you can't explain it. My dad said to me once, and he's no longer with us, but he said to me, being on stage sometimes is better than sex. I just said, you're doing it wrong. But genuinely, that feeling that you can't explain it.
It's connection. I think it's a connection thing of, being on a stage and having people around you, or being able to tell stories or connect on so many different levels and make people feel something. It is it's such a unique thing that we're able to do, I think, and where we are able to kind of reach people that sometimes can't necessarily be reached. And again, going back to radio, I think, that is, if you think back to like the war or countries where, it's very difficult to kind of get access to things, radio is such the most powerful medium.
People up, isn't it? In the BBC World Service and what that does, it's still a powerful medium, how it connects. And, before the Berlin Wall came down and all of how it connected. And some people were forbidden from listening to certain radio stations. They were banned, just like Facebook and social media is in some areas of the world. It's, for some people, radio was forbidden fruit.
Yeah.
For some people, it was that real connectivity. They may be in a place in the world where there's no one around, but they've got this radio.
Yeah.
And they've got a bit of power, and they can turn this thing on. And and for maybe the elderly or someone in life is lonely, it's a friend.
Yes.
And that is why I think radio, no matter what it throws at it, it still will survive.
And I think as well, like what you were saying there about a friend, I remember all the way through kind of the early noughties, like the Hirsty's Daily Dose for me, I felt like I was part of your group.
Really?
Honest to God, I listened every day.
No way.
I did. When I was driving to work, so whether that was driving to Boots where I used to work, or then graduating from drama school, driving even on my way to like working on the Royal, I would have the radio on and I'd have you guys on from like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I felt I was part of your gang and I was so involved with everything that you did. But then you say to me, there were some days you used to just come in and just, Well,
most days, and this is the playing chicken with yourself thing again. I think someone like, as an actress, when you get off book, when you get the dialogue in your head and you lock it, that's when you can play with the character then.
Yeah.
And radio is the same. Once you learn how to use that equipment and you can get from one song to another and say something in the middle, and you can do that with your eyes shut, then you can start to play with the machine. So I used to just drive into the car park whilst the news was playing at 6 o'clock, walk into the building while the first song was on, walk in, muff on the microphone, spongy thing, headphones in, bang, you're on. And I loved it. And there was the concept, because our show was, it's hard to describe if anyone didn't listen to this show.
If you didn't listen, you missed out.
It was rubbish. It was three not people. Rubbish. It was 3 people just bickering. But we made it less about us. It was about the audience.
Yeah.
It was you guys that were listening. It wasn't about, yes, we told stories about our lives, but we wanted, and I've always wanted to make the listener the star. It's all about, it's not about us. I'm just there to facilitate and pull it all together and glue it together, well, the best I can.
Yeah.
But it's about the listener.
I think that you felt like that. I think, when people used to ring in, and you used to have so many people ring in, all the time. Everyone was ringing in with a story or they wanted to play the game or, with all the different games that you had, which was just, they were so just inclusive silly. And you felt like you were part of a very special gang, really.
And the thing is, you couldn't do that radio show today.
No.
Because, you know, we live in a society where, and I never wanted to offend, but we
Yeah.
push boundaries a little bit.
Yeah.
And if someone was an idiot, we'd tell them they were an idiot. But you can't do that these days.
No, and you'd also put them in very difficult positions
Yeah,
as
of course
well.
we
Like
would.
you might, you know, kind of get them into trouble on air.
Yeah, of course
Should
we
you
would.
be in work?
Shouldn't you be at work? So we were little devils sometimes. But I think people miss that kind of radio.
Well, like I said, I mean, and I don't know how you did it really, because obviously during that time it was 11 years of your life, and you won so many awards with that show, and you were working as well doing Hit 40 UK.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you were going through so much yourself that no one would have ever known about. I mean, how did you get up every day and do that show, kind of like jostling with yourself personally?
I think radio was the thing. I think if I look back now, and I started writing a book, oh gosh, about 6 years ago. I did 20,000 words and stopped. I thought, I've not done enough. I need to do more. And it's coming up to 10 years since I made a big life change. And looking back, and I start to think back about certain things, I think I became obsessed about radio because it was escapism. It took me away from the gender dysphoria I was feeling. So I'd known from a very, very, very young age that I wasn't a boy, even though I was assigned male at birth. And I knew that because and I have no memory of this, but my mum told me this. But when I was 3 and 4 at school, they'd tell the girls to go to one side of the classroom and the boys to go to the other. And I'd just go and sit with the girls. And then they'd do it again. I'd go sit with the girls. It's like, no, you belong over there. You stay there. So this would happen. My mum ended up going down to school. I kept saying I was a girl. I wanted dolls. I wouldn't have my hair cut. My mum tried to get me in. There's a photo of me in a cowboy outfit or something like that. And I'm smiling, but she always said, getting you in that was a real drama because she would not wear it for love nor money. And then I think the kids at school worked out I was different before I'd worked it out myself. Because kids do that.
Yeah.
And because your contemporaries, you're with them from, well, especially where I'm from a council estate in Barnsley. So the kids I went to nursery with, I was still at school with them at secondary school at 15. You know, the odd one came and went, but I was with them. So they'd made their mind up that I was short, spindly, effeminate, talked about Shakin' Stevens a little too much when all the other kids were into like, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Don't diss the Shaky. He's got a new album out, by the way, and it's brilliant. It's really good. It's really good. He's 75 now.
I know.
But anyway, so I was into a lot, and I don't think that did me any favours. But I internalised it all because I learned really early on that I couldn't talk about that because I was told it was wrong.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was always told that I wasn't that. So I just internalised. So the radio was escapism that made it all go away. And I threw myself into it, probably too much, because I lived for nothing else other than the radio. I talk about Paul Stead, who got me in radio. I've still got my pencil case from school. It's got Radio Air logos and Paul Stead written on it all over it. My drawings are all Radio Air logos. Everything is just radio.
Because that's like maybe perhaps where you felt the most kind of safe,
Yeah.
alive,
Yeah.
like, included, just where you could be you, talk and talk about the things that you enjoyed.
Yeah. It just was the thing that made it go away. And if anyone listening to this has gone through something in their lives where they've had to do something that helps them escape from a certain problem, whether that is drugs or alcohol or something. For me, my drugs and alcohol was radio.
Yeah.
It was the only single thing. And I never did drugs later in life. Never. Never. A bit of alcohol. Of course you do. You're going out when you're, you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. And especially because we were doing gigs back in the day.
Yeah, I was going to say you were doing like road shows and big parties.
Yeah, you were doing big, massive, or when nightclubs used to exist.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we'd have a rider. What? A few bottles of gin and some vodka and a load of tonic.
Yeah.
But that would be there. So you did sometimes probably drink too much back in the hedonistic days of the 90s and noughties. But I knew that wasn't, that didn't make it go away, alcohol. It's probably made me feel worse, if anything. So it was radio. So I would, in the days of in the 90s and where I'd create sketches. I did the evening show at a radio station in West Yorkshire called The Pulse. And I would come off air at 10 o'clock and I would see the breakfast show coming in at 5:30 because I'd be in the studios all night creating, making sketches, writing stuff constantly and that made everything go away. I didn't have to think about, if I made myself so tired from exhaustion, I didn't have to worry about my gender being wrong.
That must have been so difficult though, Steph, like is in the, you know, and also, I mean, I don't know kind of if you ever confided in your colleagues, in Danny or Jojo. And
I did Jojo, yeah, I did. And I did tell I told Danny and Jojo actually pretty much at the start of the show. I'd known Danny since he was 16 or 15 actually. And then Jojo we met, but I confided in Jojo because she used to do this night in Leeds called Vague, where you were only allowed into this club. It was an amazing club, and I never went, but you had to show your true personality. And more outrageously you were dressed, the better.
Yeah.
So if anyone would get this, it would be Jojo. So I confided in Jojo, and then I told Danny, because sometimes I looked like I'd got the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I wanted my colleagues to know if I was, and by this point I'm in my mid-20s and it's not going away. I'd been to my GP when I was 17. I've talked about this in other interviews, but you may have heard me say it, where I went to my GP when I was 17 and he said to me, I strongly recommend you don't take this path in life. You'll lose family, friends. You won't have a successful life. It was something like that. I'd just passed my driving test. And I remember sitting in my Vauxhall Nova, which I still own to this day, my first car. And I remember sitting there at Rotherham Road Clinic in Barnsley, and I can see the fence in front of me. And I just sobbed. And I remember thinking, the only thing that makes this go away is radio. Radio's the thing. So I threw myself from that point into radio even more. But what it did, it bit me on the backside, because the more successful I became, the more trapped I became. I
was going to say that to you, kind of like, you know, when you get into the height of your success and you've got this incredible breakfast show and you've been anchoring like national shows, but
crazy.
Yet you're not being your true self. I mean, when did that moment come where you thought, I just can't do this anymore?
There were several things happened. Where I started to experiment, and I'd been in my mother's wardrobe since I was a child, and I'd been dressing in her clothes, you know, all my life. So much so there was so many times I heard my mum shouting at my dad going, Derek, have you been in my clothes again? No, it was me. Yeah. But she should have known this, because she would have, you know,
maybe she
knew.
Did.
She probably did. But there were several things that happened that made me realise that I could do this, but I knew how trapped I was. When you're faced with taking your own life and it fails, and then you try again and it fails, that kind of makes you realise that I'm here for a reason. I need to do something about this. So that, and along with YouTube, that's the other thing that showed me I could do this, because by this point people are vlogging their journeys. This is like late noughties. People are starting to, the racing driver Charlie Martin, who's incredible, she in particular was vlogging, and I remember seeing her and thinking, she's round about my age, she can do this, I can do this. And I'd seen people like Caroline Cossey, who transitioned in the 1970s and became an incredible model. She was a Bond girl in For Your Eyes Only. I'd come across her when I was about 12 or something like that. I'd seen her, and she was the only, because this is before the internet. Yeah. This is the only footnote that I have. There's nothing else. There's no information.
No reference note, nothing
so
else.
The internet happens, and that really changes everything. And there's a lady called Kim who I connected with in the early days. Weirdly, our other halves at the time had the same name. We had one digit phone number that was different.
Whoa.
It's in the year 2000. And we were both suffering from gender dysphoria. So we connected, and she helped me a great deal. So I can't thank her enough. And then YouTube happened. So there were several things that happened that showed me that I could do this. Yeah. And also that I'm meant to be here.
Yeah.
And I ain't doing that a
100%.
third time because that is ridiculous. And if anyone is listening to this and having those thoughts, please just talk.
Yeah.
Talk to people, because I didn't. And, thankfully it didn't. Thank God it didn't work.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like you say, that kind of going, actually, that, not shock, but with that realization of going, I am meant to be here.
I'm meant to be here, yeah.
I'm really good at my job as well, which is the one thing that I love. No, come on. That I really love. I deserve to be here as well. I think there's, must be an element of that.
Life is priceless. It's shown me that, that this gift, and it's a privilege to get older as well.
Yeah.
It really
definitely.
is. I don't like old mother time. She's a cow. It's going all too fast.
So you made the decision in 2014 to move away from radio, to then kind of go through the transition process. That must have been so hard for you. But obviously you knew, like, I saw that there was something that you'd said, it was tits or death, which is such a you statement, and obviously we don't make light really of kind of everything that you've just discussed.
No.
But in the sense that actually you had to pursue this. So, that first morning where you weren't going into radio, how did that feel?
I'd made the decision to do something about this. I'd been out for lunch with a friend of mine, Kate, who I love dearly. And I told her when I was like 17 at college. So around the time I went to see my GP, first time around, I told Kate, and we went wig shopping in Sheffield, and then never spoke of it again until we went out for lunch. And she brought it up in conversation, and she said, "How are you doing with that kind of stuff?" And I said, "Oh, I just want to die." So she begged me to go to my GP, and I did. In fact, she made me send her a photo of the appointment card. And then it was about a week later I went. And I said to my GP how I felt. And she said to me, "Well, I know quite a lot about this because 3 people in our village have transitioned." I'm like, "Where?" I've not seen them. Where are they?
Oh my gosh.
You don't see people that have transitioned. They just get on with their lives, just blend into society, and that's it. They get on. And I got referred to the gender identity clinic. And I spent probably this is about 2010. Bear in mind, I didn't transition until 14. So I spent about a year trying to fix it. Because I thought, is there a pill you can give me?
Yeah.
Just something to make this go away. Because I will lose everything. Because I'd be in the studio in the morning, you'd have the daily newspapers and everything.
Yeah.
And I'd be flicking through the newspapers and you'd see, the way the media portrayed anybody who had transitioned. I mean, there's a culture war going on at the moment.
Yeah.
Which we've not got enough time to get into, and how it's been politicised, and that word transgender is being used probably, to get headlines in the newspaper to move away from the, the cost of living crisis and other things. But also the fact that, you can be who you want to be. It just takes a bit of time. But I tried to make it go away. I tried to make it, give me a pill, make this thing go away, because I don't have to go through this. The newspapers would say, like, gender bending freak, sex change Charlie, a really bad side profile photo of someone. So I was like, just make this go away if I can.
Yeah.
Because if I go through this, I will lose everything. And I've worked too hard to lose everything. Is the world ready? So, and then I got some psychotherapy, and that really helped. And then I made the decision, and then obviously I tried to take my life a couple of times. Made the decision that I could do this because I saw people on YouTube being, their true selves, and thought, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to do this. So started on hormones, which, and I know you obviously, been following all your perimenopausal work. And having, once having diesel run through my veins, now having super unleaded.
It's a different thing.
It's a totally different thing. My spatial awareness completely changed. I was never clumsy. I can't park my car. I'm still not great. Whereas before, I was really good at it.
And you've got a sweet tooth.
And I've got a sweet tooth. So I was savoury before. Now I'm all about chocolate. And this is HRT. It's hormone. It's hormonal. Yeah. And it's so powerful. And then watching your body go through a second puberty is just... I was in the shower one day and I was washing myself, and all of a sudden I was like, where's that come from? An arse appeared. I was like,
how did that feel for you?
oh,
Like, was
no,
it like...
it was amazing.
I was going to say, it must have just felt...
Yeah.
Like, did you cry? Like, it must have just felt
Yeah,
like...
do you know what? I wasn't... Some people I've heard have said they've got, they got really emotional. They'll cry at anything. I can be teary, but I always could be teary.
Yeah.
So I didn't really notice the difference in emotional state. It was more sensory and, things like being clumsy or spatial awareness but then having your body change. And I think my body thinks it's younger than it is. So it really adapted well, so my body and fat redistribution. And I was always really skinny anyway. I got fat once. I had a problem with my feet. I couldn't keep them out the chippy.
Stop it.
So I was fascinated how it changed. So, and it was just wonderful watching it. So I'd take photos, kept a little photo diary. Because and
seeing that evolution of like you becoming the person that you were always meant to be.
Well, everyone thought I was ill as well. Because I was looking different and I was looking gaunt. My hair was growing. Everyone thought I was losing weight and growing my hair for a part in something. So I said, I always used to say, I'll tell you later. You'll find out soon. Don't worry. You'll find out. And they did. So, and I think some people, because I always used to talk about going for facials and stuff.
Yeah.
All the time on the radio. I didn't think it was a shock to some people. But I think others didn't see it coming. It blindsided them. And friends, it's interesting now, almost a decade on, friends talk about going through a grief process because they thought that person had died. And I hadn't. I'm still here. My brain is still the same. Essentially, biology gets drunk.
Yeah.
So when I was growing in my mum's tummy, she was convinced I was a girl when she was carrying me because I had a brother who we sadly lost. He was premature. Whereas these days, he would have survived. My mum always used to say that I pumped his lungs up, but his lungs collapsed and we lost him. It's before I was born. But she was convinced with Stephen that he was a boy all along, whereas with me, she was convinced I was a girl. So it's that.
When you've gone through this process and you had transitioned and then, you then got a job at the BBC, which, how did that feel for you? How did you feel kind of being who you are now, being Stephanie and going back into that place that you love and know so well? What did that feel like for you?
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Because I know radio so well.
Yeah.
It's all I've studied all my life. I just know it inside out. But going back in and then being yourself is terrifying. And then hearing what comes out of the speakers was devastating because vocally, I'm quite hoarse today. We had our big radio awards a couple of nights ago and I've been talking public speaking and I've got hay fever as well. So I do sound a bit hoarse today. But hearing what I sounded like, which was just before, which didn't match how I looked anymore, was devastating. I remember driving home and I couldn't see the road for tears because I was just heartbroken. And then I used to see a speech therapist and when you speak on the radio, it's called a link. You're linking items together. So I would take 3 or 4 links that I'd done. I'd write them out verbatim with all the ums and ahs and everything that I'd said because I never script anything on the radio. But afterwards, I would write it down by listening back to the show. And I would give them to my speech therapist and we would sit in her surgery and I'd do them again and again and again and again. And it just plateaued. It wasn't getting any better. So I was Googling one night and I heard that they could basically fiddle with your vocal cords to give you a higher pitch range. And I found the guy that invented this.
Oh, wow.
In Korea.
Oh, wow.
So in Seoul. So I booked a flight.
And you went?
Yeah, with a 30 to 40% risk that you might be hoarse for the rest of your life. Or
yeah,
you
I was
could
going to
lose
say,
your
because your
voice.
vocal cords are so sensitive.
Yeah, your vocal folds. So they sutured my vocal folds. So the larger the vocal fold, it actually, when you see it, it looks rude. I'm breaking the fourth wall here. It looks rude. But when you take a snapshot of a vocal fold that's open, because they're constantly doing this when we're speaking, but you get it open, the wider, the deeper the voice, the smaller it is, the higher range you've got. So they basically suited mine and made it smaller. And this is just what comes out. Although it's a bit hoarse today. But literally. And that changed everything. And that made the phone ring again. So, and I always name check Kate Squire at the BBC in Manchester because she put me back on when I sounded awful. She believed in me. And she was the person in UK radio that put me back on the radio. And I owe that woman everything. Everything. Because she put me back on. And then I got a daily job at the BBC. After surgery, I got a daily job at the BBC in Leeds.
Well, you created an amazing show that won an ARIA. Come on, let's
we were lucky,
let's
yeah,
not
we
just
won an ARIA for it, and it was pushing boundaries a little bit, and you know the target audience had moved from probably 65 to 50, so which was older than I was at the time. I'm not there yet, but so my thought process in my head when I was creating that was right. So if they were 20 in like 1988 or something like that, they'll be 50 now.
Yeah.
So I just targeted in my head, what was a 20-year-old doing in 1988? What were they listening to? So that was my thought process for because it's all about who you're talking to.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to alienate those who were older as well. So we talked about a range of subjects. I loved doing that show. And my producer, Sarah and Katie, incredible women, two of the best producers I've ever had. I loved doing that show.
Did you feel free? Did you feel
yes,
like a sense of freedom, like this is everything now that I could have ever hoped for, really? When you look back at what your experience of being so successful but yet not living as your true self to then winning awards, and then being you, did you feel free? Yeah,
I always say that 2019 was the best year of my life. It genuinely was. I mean, there'll be another best year to come at some point. Obviously, this was just before COVID, but everything was happening. The show was happening. I was here, there, and everywhere. It was brilliant. And I'd found this newfound confidence because the transition was over. I'd gone through everything. Everything had got to grips. I always say, luckily, people accepted me, but I've never, because, I spent 30 years trying to get my head around this. I can't then all of a sudden, offload it onto everyone and go, you've got to get this immediately. Because I was saying before, like, biology gets drunk. And when you're growing inside, your mum's tummy, sometimes children can be born with limbs that are different, learning difficulties, autism, ADHD. There's so many variations of the human form. My brain just formed opposite. I couldn't control that. Literally, my brain formed opposite to what I came out looking like. My brain formed the same as yours.
Yeah.
And it was at odds with myself. I transitioned. The noise went away. I cured.
That must have just been so, like you say, freeing and liberating for you.
Yeah. Do you know if you're worried about something or you're going through something in life where you've gone for a diagnosis about something and you've got the all clear, the worry.
Yeah.
But the relief. Well, imagine that relief and times it by 1 billion. I cannot tell you the relief of just being free. The noise is just gone. Never, not one regret. Never. And as soon as when I had lady garden surgery, as I call it, lady garden installed. I can't take it seriously. I know it's very serious, but I have to. It's my way of
dealing with things.
I have to turn it on its head.
Yeah. But I think that's the Yorkshire thing. Yeah. Don't you think that is such a Yorkshire
thing? It is.
Thing?
It's like when my parents who both died of cancer, I'm part of the Dead Parent Club. I have to turn that on its head because it's my way of dealing with the grief. I miss my parents. Yesterday I had just a weird day of missing them really badly. But that's fine because I'm human.
Yeah.
We're all human.
And you do find that humour to cope with difficult situations,
Massively,
I think. And I think
massively.
that's part of what we do as storytellers, you know, the
Yeah,
comedy,
yeah.
tragedy kind of element. It's there for a reason. It's part of the
Yeah.
human existence. And, you know, Steph, like I was just saying, then you have kind of built back your incredible career and living so truthfully as yourself. And there is that old saying, isn't it, that, you know, the truth will set you free.
Always,
And
always.
for anyone that's kind of living in a situation, whatever that might be for them, where they feel they can't speak, they feel oppressed, they feel like they can't be who they are.
Yeah.
You are living proof of actually, no, you can, and you can live your best life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know you've obviously developed Believe Achieve, which is your personal development program, which you do so much personal speaking with. Is that important for you to kind of share all these lessons and share these stories?
Yeah, Believe Achieve comes from these two words I saw in a book when I was around 15 or something. So I talked about getting bullied at school earlier on. And I would just stay behind in the school library. We had a wonderful library teacher called Miss Rose, God rest her soul. I think she was about 107 or something when she died.
Oh, bless her.
She was bulletproof. And when I was at school, she must have been post-retirement. And she was just incredible. And she saw a real vulnerability within me. She was my form teacher for 1 year. So I think she got to understand how I worked a little bit. And she was tough. You didn't mess with Miss Rose. But she let me just sit in the library and read anything. So there was a book, and I don't know what book it was. If anyone sees a paragraph in a book and it says, and she believed and she achieved, please let me know, because I wish I knew what it was. But those two words, no, I'm about 14, I think, because I'm trying to believe, achieve, and yes, I'm tapping myself on the forehead on believe and pointing on achieve. So much so I did my mum's head in with it. I used to go around going, believe, achieve, believe, achieve, believe, achieve. Because I just wanted to be on radio air. That's all I wanted. There was nothing else. Didn't want to be on Radio 1. It was radio air. That's all I wanted to be on. So I believe achieved my way onto the radio. Then the career started to happen. I never really said believe, achieve again. Never did. Because it happened. And then when I lost everything, or I was leading up to changing my life, I had to believe, achieve again. And one day, I remember the back doors in the house being open and there was a breeze blowing through. And I remember coming to the point of about to press the button and going, I'll get a new cat if the cat... When I used to have
Dave.
when I used to have to put a wig on, it used to freak Dave out. He used to go and lie under the bed. It confused him. So I just think, I'll get a new cat. If you don't like me, Dave, I'll get a new one. I wouldn't. You know, but if I lost my sofa, I'll get a different sofa. If I lose this, I'll lose that. And I just remember saying, believe, achieve. Come on, believe, achieve. And he came back to me. So these two words mean everything to me. They're my personal little motto that helps me get through tough times in life. You know, someone said to me recently, "Oh, that's a bit ambitious." And that's like a red rag to a bull. Don't ever say that to me.
Have you met me?
Yeah, have you met me? But I am constantly believing and achieving, because life throws stuff at us all, doesn't it? Anything. Look, if I can grow some boobs in public, you can do anything. Genuinely, anything is possible. If I can do this, no matter what you're going through right now in life, anything is achievable. But you have to believe. I saw Chris Evans on Virgin Radio. I was flicking through my Insta, and I saw him wearing a baseball hat on with the word believe.
Yeah.
And that's his thing. You know, he's believing. You believe you can do it. I see other people around the world saying believe. And I'm like, yes.
It's a sense of hope, isn't it?
It's hope.
And it's hope.
It's positive.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that's the thing, is that we all kind of would love, really, I think, and need to live in an existence where we are hopeful, and we can believe, and we can see, you know, representation across the board, and see people that have gone out there and done it, and kind of look at them and see their experiences, and why it's so important, going back to radio and storytelling and sharing stories.
Completely.
Because by having these kind of conversations, you don't know who the next person that you're going to inspire and that they're going to believe and they're going to achieve from that. So that the fact that we do have very open conversations, and we see each other as well. We see each other, whether that's on screen, digitally, on the radio, so that other people who might be sat at home, like we said, that don't have access to things, that don't have access to a friendship group or just information. They can still be part of something. It's really, really important.
Completely. And I love just speaking to people, and whether I'm speaking at a huge, massive conference or a big business, or I was at a women's institute in Bradford last night. And it's just making that impact. And I'll always ask the audience at the start, what is your believe achieve? This is not just about me. Yes, I've got a story to tell you, but what is your believe achieve? And you talked about, development program, and that's something I'm working on. I'm starting to craft, because I'm trying to deconstruct how I've done this, because I've just believed I could. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I'm now starting to pull it apart, going, right, oh, that's why I did that. And I use this, and right. So I'm trying to put it into a framework.
Creating a template for other people.
Yeah. So
and is that important to you, that you do feel like that you are passing on this information?
Yes,
because when you think back to those moments when you were at the lowest ebb and feeling like, oh my God, and then you said, actually there's a reason for you, that you had to be here. There's a purpose here for you, alongside obviously the great work that you do in radio. Do you feel like now you do have a little bit of a responsibility in some capacity?
Yeah, I guess so. I try not to think about it as a responsibility as such, because I think that would just put the weight of the world on my shoulders. I'm like, I've never been responsible. I've been on the radio all my life. I'm like,
that is responsible.
It is. I know it is. And it's an honour and a privilege to be behind any microphone and for people to allow you into their world. But there is a responsibility, and you can't say naughty things, and you've got to be responsible. And I always was one to follow the conduct of code and a code of conduct and everything. But there is a responsibility. Yes, you're right. Because I want to help people. I want people who have so much potential that they just never get to reach that because they believe they're limited. Or there's a devil inside them that's pulling them to one side going, no, you can't do this. Or there's people around them sapping energy away from them. There's always people. I had a few negative people in my world, and thank goodness I don't associate with them anymore, because they made me feel worthless. And that's the kind of responsibility, I think. It's showing people that you can do this. And I'm not, I will speak about this in interviews and stuff, but if you look down my social media, I don't talk about transitioning, or I don't get involved in any political side of it or anything like that, or I pop up on TV arguing or debating my existence. I won't do that. I just do my job.
Yeah.
Because by doing my job, that shows the general public that I'm not a scary, freaky person. Just my brain formed opposite to what I came out looking like. That's all. And I'm just doing my job. My parents raised me to be a good person, to treat people the way I like to be treated, and treat others well, and and do my job. So I'm lucky that I've got a platform where I can just try and be a good broadcaster, entertain people, play some good tunes, and we can all be happy.
And we can all be happy. And we are all happy, and ultimately it's lovely to see you so happy as well.
And likewise, and congratulations on the capsule.
Oh, thank you.
Your perimenopausal event a few weeks ago was just incredible.
Oh, thank you.
And all of your work you do, and you're a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, stop it now.
Stop it.
I'm not good at this bit now. Come on, I'll be wrapping this up now.
And thank you for the opportunity to be on here as well. It is genuinely, you've got a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Thank you so much, and thank you for giving me your time, and thank you for being so open and honest, and for sharing all of your journey with us, because what a journey it's been, such an incredible journey.
I forget, because I'm like I said at the start, I'm like, gosh, all of this, you just get up every day and you try and survive this world that's out there that seems to be at odds with us all lately, don't we? You know, we seem to be really fighting. I just want an old Nokia. And
I even thought I was going to get one the other day. I saw one in my husband's rubbish drawer, that he's got, and there was an old Nokia. I thought, I wonder if I just get that and put the SIM card in.
Yeah.
But then I was like, but I weren't doing any work.
I know.
So that's
exactly.
It's kind of a poison chalice, isn't it? But
not that I want to live in the past, but take me back to when Nokia 3310 in 1997. It'd be great.
We'll all be happy then.
Exactly.
Steph, thank you so much for joining me. It's been absolutely wonderful. If you'd like to keep up with Steph on Instagram, then you can follow her at Stephanie stephanie.hirst and on Twitter at Stephanie Hirst. If you'd like to find out more about Believe Achieve, then you can visit Steph's website, www.stephaniehirst.co.uk. And of course, you could tune into Steph's epic belter show every Saturday night from 10 p.m. on Hits Radio. For more wellbeing, fashion and beauty, you can visit us at our website, www.thecapsule.co.uk. You can also catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the In Conversation page and subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. As always, please do feel free to leave your rates and reviews. I love hearing from you. It's been so lovely to hear so many of your messages. You can also drop us a message on Instagram at Official Capsule if you'd like to put any questions to future guests or indeed leave us any messages about our current episodes. I will be back next week with another fabulous guest, but all that's left to say today is goodbye. So it's goodbye from Steph.
Thank you so much, and thank you for watching.
And goodbye from me.